What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, here with my beautiful wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi, everyone. I'm AKDI, and I'm from Turkey.
And today is episode 52 of Simon and Acting Movie Reviews. This is a fan request from my guy, Matt Villainy, and the film we are reviewing is V for Vendetta, the 2005 political, science fiction, action, drama, romance. I don't
This,
know. There's a lot going on in this film. What do you, how would you describe it?
I mean, like definitely dystopian, sort of like maybe also a little bit like a communist movie as well. I don't know if I can say communist, but yeah, it's a little bit action, political, definitely. So yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of themes in this movie. It's definitely overtly political with a message, but I think the true message of this film sort of flies over people's heads, and that's how I'm going to be looking at this. By the way, my guy Avery Adams jumped in here. Shout out to him as well, and he requested to speak, so I'm going to allow him to speak. So yeah, this film stars Natalie Portman and another character, the main character, who's played by V, who doesn't take off his mask. He's played by a British actor named Hugo Weaving. This film was directed or produced by the Wachowski brothers. No, the film was directed by a guy named James McTeague, and the screenplay was written by the Wachowskis, who are the same brothers, sisters, whatever, who also brought us the Matrix series. So this is another great film, I think, from them, but it's not as good as the Matrix, I would say. I don't know. Acty, what do you think?
Mm. I mean, yeah, like The Matrix is just like I feel like something else because it's also like very creative as well, and this is like something that is a bit more realistic,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. So yeah, like I think like the imagination behind The Matrix is another level.
Mm-hmm.
But just like that one, this one is like very well executed, and like all the ideas are interesting and up for debate. So I think they know like how to do that.
Yeah. I think, well, both of us have seen this film, a long time ago before, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like this is a film that a lot of people have saw at least once, but they never came back to revisit it. And maybe they remember it better than what it actually was. I remember seeing it when it came out in theaters in 2005. And I think this film, when it came out in the US at the time, it was like controversial because, this was right after 9/11. And it was also during the War on Terror. It was during the Patriot Act era of George Bush when the president was authorizing the government to hack into people's emails and telephone records and surveil our calls and everything like that. And we had Guantanamo Bay locking up people for indefinite amounts of time. And so to make a film, a big budget Hollywood blockbuster action film about the terrorist being the hero, I believe the film, definitely was controversial for the time it came out, and it resonated a lot with people who were anti-war, anti-George Bush, anti, right-wing extremism in America at the time. So that's my recollection of when I saw it. So what about you? Do you remember when you saw it?
I don't really remember, and like when I watched the movie for the second time today, I realized that I didn't remember the movie at all, basically. But I just remembered that like it moved me and made me think different things about like politics and the government and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I do think I don't know like about that era. Obviously, like I was not there. So thinking about like Turkey, this movie also like was very popular as well because people were just like, anarchy and I don't know. We always hate our government, and so people are always like up for, you know, critiquing the government and stuff like that. So I think like the youth sort of like really took this movie in at the time.
Yeah, definitely.
That
It's a movie that
that's
speaks
what.
to like that rebel spirit. It's a movie that speaks to this idea of fighting against power, which is resonant in a lot of people around the world because we all hate our president.
Yeah, yeah. I just remember like, the mask and like the symbols like being everywhere, like being sold and marketed and stuff like that.
Mm. So Avery left a comment under the live stream right now. He said, "I saw this a while ago. I actually like this movie. I think a lot of people like this movie, and I can say I like it too. But distance in time and the events that have happened in the real world since have made me look at it a bit different. So I think let's just jump into like walking through the story. So basically, the movie opens up with the story of Guy Fawkes. And if people don't know who Guy Fawkes is, he was this guy many centuries ago in Britain who tried to blow up the Parliament. And the reason why he tried to blow up the Parliament, I forgot exactly. I believe it was because of the persecution of a certain sect of Christians in England at the time. So he was trying to fight back against the Queen and the government. But essentially, he was caught before he could blow up the Parliament. He was tortured and then eventually executed. And to this day in the UK, they have a holiday. I believe it's November 5th, called Guy Fawkes Day, where they basically burn like effigies of Guy Fawkes to like remember that they were able to kill this traitor who tried to blow up the nation. So let's just remember that. Let's remember that in the real world, people celebrate Guy Fawkes Day, as far as I know, to remember that they actually killed the terrorists, not that the terrorists actually won. So, what did you think about like the opening sequence of the film? Remember, 5th of November, all of that stuff.
Wow, okay. I did not know that it was like a real story, that guy. But yeah, that's definitely like with a lot of things with this movie, I feel like there is a lot of like historical symbolism, and also like current symbolism as well, or like at least at that time it was like that in 2005. And yeah, it's kind of weird because like if you think about those sorts of heroes, or just not heroes but just like influential people, they are heroes to some and then traitors for others. So I guess like that dynamic was interesting in the beginning, and definitely like the whole poem sort of like is alive with you throughout the movie. Like you always remember the 5th of November, and that
Mhm.
poem is just like sticks with you. So I think that was like good as well.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Guy Fawkes is that his story is similar to any sort of counterculture figure or revolutionary figure. Like Bob Marley was totally against, having his face on a T-shirt be commodified and worn by people that couldn't care less about destroying the environment. Che Guevara did not want his face on sneakers sold by Nike. But capitalism in our society sort of takes the names and faces and ideas of these figures and commodifies them and brings them into the superstructure, which is sort of like what happened to Guy Fawkes. Because now, British people get drunk and pop fireworks and burn shit every year to celebrate, this guy, but they probably don't know exactly who Guy Fawkes was. Like, you're not alone. Like, many British people celebrate the 5th of November, say the poem, but they don't even know about the Guy Fawkes story. And I feel like that's also a symbol for what this film sort of represents too, to some degree. And I'm gonna build
Yeah.
on that as we get closer. But go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, I can definitely see like this movie is also saying like open your eyes, don't be another sheep in the system. Don't let the system like take away your integrity and what you stand for. So, yeah, like you said, that is also like the case with many, other holidays as well, not only in like England, but also like in the
Mm.
States, like 4th of July and stuff like that. And happy Juneteenth, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, happy Juneteenth. That's another thing, right? We're doing this on a holiday to celebrate the end of slavery and oppression. Now it's brought into the system that still oppresses and is also actively trying to make us not learn about our history of oppression. It's sort of a mind f if you really think about it. It goes deep. It gets really deep. But let's continue. Let's
Yeah.
continue in the story. So basically, the film begins after they show Guy Fawkes getting killed. This future Britain, and this guy is on TV. He's sort of like a Bill O'Reilly, Piers Morgan type character, where he is like, ranting at the public, giving this commentary about how America is a failed nation and how Britain has stood strong against all the atrocities that have happened in the world, like war and famine and disease. And meanwhile, this woman is like getting dressed and ready while she's listening to the TV. And there's this other guy who's dressed in all black, wearing a Guy Fawkes mask, putting on knives and swords and whatever, getting ready to go outside as well. And as the guy is like continuing to speak on TV with so much passion about God bless Britain and goddamn everybody else or something like that, the girl turns off the TV and says, "That's enough." She begins walking outside late at night in London, and the announcers are saying on the speakers through the streets that there's a curfew outside. Anybody who's caught outside will get arrested. She walks down a dark alley and is confronted by a bunch of men who try to rape her. But she's like tries to fight back by pulling out some mace, but they reveal their police badges, showing that they have the authority to be outside and they're probably going to rape her. But before they can actually take her booty, this guy dressed in all black comes and beats him up and saves the girl. And she says, "Who are you?" And he says a bunch of words that start with V, a lot of alliteration, to basically say he's a hero and revolutionary. He then takes her up to a top of a building as he shows her that he is able to hack the sound speakers throughout the city and begins to play some classical music while he blows up a building. What did you think about like that opening part when V and Evie met?
Yeah, so I think like the first part is just sort of like telling us, how we live our everyday lives, because we do the same things that Evie does, right? We just like continue living, going on dates and drinking and eating, and like all this stuff is happening, and we take in that propaganda from TV and all those shows, even if we don't support that, even if we don't believe that, like if we're like constantly being exposed to something like that, this sort of thing gets normalized. And we like I feel like after some time, we kind of lose hope, like those ones that want, I don't know, equality and good for everyone, and those like so we sort of like lose hope of doing that as we hear the propaganda. So I think that's what like the first part sort of like told me. And then of course like it's interesting to see like there's curfew and people are not free and things like that. And yeah, I don't know, like the explosion of the building, obviously it's like a famous scene, right? So that was pretty cool, and to do it like with music and stuff, that was also like pretty nice. I don't know, what
The
about you?
only thing I was thinking, I was like, Natalie Portman is so thin in this film. When she turns to the side, she disappears. And I was scared when she went to the top of the building, a strong gust would come and like blow her away like a paper bag. Like it was really, she looked sickly thin. Like what was happening? Like size zero jeans would have been baggy on this girl. Like
I, she's a tiny woman. One thing I was curious about is that like why they chose Natalie Portman to play a British role.
I was actually thinking that too. I was like, wow, she really nailed that British accent. This is probably one of the best British accents I've heard on an American actress. So I wasn't cringing when she was speaking, like other American
Yeah.
actors, doing doing it. So yeah, shout out to her for nailing it. But I don't know if they cleaned that up in edit, if that was all done in post. I don't know. And
Well, she also got like an award for it as
Really?
well.
Well, yeah, she kind of went all the way with this role. And the thing about this film, it sort of opens up like cheesy action because like V comes and kicks these guys' asses in like an impossible way with like knives and stuff. And that sort of continues in the film. I believe the one part about this film that sort of takes me out of it is the action scenes with V because V does like the almost impossible with knives and just fists and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying? Especially when you find out what
Yeah,
happens to him before all of the events. Go ahead.
yeah, that there's definitely like some loopholes there,
Hmm.
because like, yeah, did he become like a supernaturally strong person after what happened to
Hmm.
him? Like, what happened? Is he like Superman or something, you know?
Yeah.
So that those, like, yeah, those were like a bit
Hmm.
weird. But I do like, how he's like fighting, and he trained himself and things like that, and then when he stops, he's like going back to this British like royal men sort of like like speaking in speech.
Right, right.
And, like, he's poetic and stuff, so I like that controversy, like, not controversy, but I don't know,
Hmm.
duality, I
Yeah.
guess.
The another thing I was thinking when I first saw V, and I'm sorry we're staying so long on the scene, is that I feel like this film has sort of taken on a life of its own. And looking back at it now, at least for me, it's hard not to see the meme of "I studied the blade." And for anybody who's listening and knows that meme about the the fat white guy in the fedora who was like, "While you were out getting girls, I studied the blade. While you were getting drunk partying, I studied the blade. And now that you are in your dire need of help, you come to me and ask for it." And like I can't help but think that when I look at V, like he has so many like incel characteristics. But the thing is, like V create movies like V and the Joker film, Dark Knight, like they sort of created the incel aesthetic. So it's hard for me to look at this now and not cringe a little bit and laugh at how V acts, because a lot of it is so memeing, like memeable and stuff like that. If you follow me,
Yeah, yeah, I get that, but they also are, like, their ideas or what they stand for or what they symbolize is so powerful that they're kind of like can get,
I
pussy.
got you. I got you. So you're saying you would smash V?
Probably,
Wow.
yeah.
All right.
Wouldn't take off his mask, though.
Okay. All right, all right. Well, jumping on ahead. Basically, when the building blows up, there's a meeting held underground with like the leaders of the fascist shadow government, and the top leader is held on a TV screen, a big TV screen, talking down to like his chancellors and his underlings, and he's saying like, tell the public that this destruction was just a unplanned demolition, and we just wanted to surprise the people, and we don't want to hold on to the past and try to find this terrorist no matter what. And the guys are like, yes, sir, right? And so the next day on TV, people turn on the news and they're seeing the news that the government is twisting it, spinning the story to make it seem like they're still in control. And we find out that Evie actually works at the news station, and she's like just like a male clerk there, like a very lowly job or whatever. But she doesn't know that the detectives saw her face on video camera and they're looking for her. And so they go to her house and they're like, okay, we found out who she is and where she works and stuff like that. And then as they're going to the news station to go arrest Evie, V breaks into the office as well after sending a bunch of like Guy Fawkes masks in there, like in boxes, and breaks in there, right? And basically he takes over the news station and sends a report to like London saying like, I'm here to like fight against this government. All of you have been asleep. All of you have been brainwashed by this government that tried to protect you from famine, disease, war on the outside and stuff like that. And throughout the film, we get hints of the world that is now London, right? Like basically there's moments here and there where they say basically they exported all the Muslims, all the black people, all the minorities, closed the borders, and basically the rest of the world went to shit, but London is still like okay. And yeah, V breaks into the station, broadcasts this message. The police try to arrest Evie, but V is able to like trick people into putting on the masks, and the police end up shooting innocent civilians and stuff like that. V is almost caught by a cop, but then Evie like helps him take down a cop who pointed a gun at him. What did you think about all of that?
Yeah, like, it was interesting, and as I was watching, I thought like, okay, so what he said is like he sort of like revealed the truth on TV, right? He put up his own video up there, and he said like, I blew up the parliament, and then 1 year later I'm gonna like blow up somewhere else. I'm not sure. Sorry, he's gonna blow up the parliament, but he blew something else before. And 1 year later I'm gonna do this, and I want you to join me, and those things. Like, he promises them something like that, and it's like so obvious that people like don't believe the government. They can see through like all the bullshit that they're giving them. And I really liked how they show like normal like households. There was like scenes from an old people's home. There was like a pub scene, and there was like a family with a girl with the goggles, like with the glasses and things like that. I really like the fact that they were like sort of showing what average people was going through when all of this was happening. And also at the same time, I thought if this happened in the real world, like right now, and if someone says 1 year later this is gonna happen, and I want you to join me, I feel like everyone would forget about it, and like no one would do it. Actually, I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, like broadcasting a message to the world like that, saying like, "Hey, I'm going to blow up the building." Like you would think that would create panic with everybody, right? But the government was still always able to spin things. And I think what this film does really well, I think better than most other films, is show how the media is complicit in making people obey the government and listen to what the people at the top tell us. And how, if there is no separation of the media, or if there is no truth in media, people will just end up believing whatever the government tells them. So I really like that the film places emphasis on that, because so many of the main bad guys in this film are actually the people on TV and the people that spread messages and propaganda. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. Like the people that we actually look up
Hmm.
to and think that have power are like basically enabling the governments or the powers to poison us like
Hmm.
mentally. And yeah, like it's very shitty because we've also sort of experienced something like similar, not similar, but like when the coup was happening in Turkey. Like after that, it was sort of like very much government controlled
Hmm.
TV and the news, and they were just like very, I don't know, like filtered.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was just hard to get like honest news and hard to know what actually was going on. And everyone was going to jail. And everyone was like not going to jail, but just like being interrogated and things like that. So it was like very
Hmm.
scary. And when things like that happen as well, like it's as an average person, it's very like scary to do anything because you're like, what if, you know, the government like takes me, or what if something like this happens to me?
Hmm.
And even though like the truth in you, it's like just really hard, which is another theme of the movie as well, like
Right.
fear, right?
Well, I think another theme that maybe is underlying, or possibly a different perspective of looking at this film, is that the government provided something that people want in times of crisis. Like in Turkey, when y'all had that coup, people just said, "I just want it to end. I don't want any more drama. No more people getting run over by tanks. Make it end. Make it stop." And so then here comes Erdogan with his big dick and says, "I brought order. I brought stability. I saved the country." And so we could easily do sort of like the empire defense and say that the empire brought stability to the galaxy, or in this case, England, right? What do you think about that? People who will say V is causing more drama and more trauma because he's disturbing the social order that basically still keeps London functioning, right? And let's keep it real. Like the way the society is ran in V for Vendetta is the way a lot of people want America to be ran. They want all the immigrants gone. They want the Muslims gone. They want to make our country very Christian. They want our country to be very heteronormative. And a lot of other countries want that too. Right now, the whole world is very right wing. So I find it funny. People might say, "Oh, I love this film," but everything that V stands for in this film is against the worldview of people right now. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but like at least for me, that's not a way of living. Just because you have certain securities, and I don't know, it's like we're humans, and I feel like we need something more than just getting up every morning, going to work, and having kids, and yeah, like we need other sort of like mentally um stimulating
Hmm.
stuff in order for us to like create more, and I don't know, like just develop more and things like that. And yeah, like that is very true what you said. A lot of people in the world do want this sort of system. And I guess like it also asks the question like, when is like revolution justified?
Hmm.
I guess because like what V is doing is also sort of like what terrorists do, really.
Right.
Like blowing up a place. But when is that
Hmm.
justified?
Right. And the thing about V is like he never takes civilian casualties. Like no innocents die. He only kills the police. But like in the real world, if you to take revolutionary action, maybe some innocents do have to die. But that's a different topic, right? And this is supposed to make V supposed to be the ultimate good guy in the film. But the world V is fighting against is like the Republican dreamland, right? Wait, there's no more gays, there's no more Muslims, all the immigrants are gone. This is like AKP, like fantasy world, right?
I know, yeah. This is like what Trump supporters want, I feel like. And also, yeah, like a lot of countries in Europe as well, like,
Yeah,
Hungary included,
yeah, yeah.
sort of want that, which is crazy.
It's sort of interesting too, because like people that are my age, right, who grew up watching these sorts of films, and people my age who remember the war in Iraq and the Patriot Act and the government surveillance, and people who went to Guantanamo Bay, we remember all of this, and we still say, yeah, let's kick out the immigrants, f the Muslims, no more gay people, trans people, all this sort of stuff, right? It's sort of interesting, like how people can sort of rationalize that in their head. I don't know. What do you think? Okay, all right. I don't think she's there. Um,
Can't.
Hello, are you there? Hello. Okay, I don't know what happened to AKDI, y'all. Sorry about that. I don't know what she's doing. Hello? Hello? Okay, all right. I don't know what happened. That's crazy. Hello? Hello?
Hey,
Yeah, is everything okay?
yeah, my Twitter sort of freaked out. I don't know what happened, but my
Okay.
microphone just wouldn't work.
Okay. Um, well, yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway, do you want to go ahead with the story?
Yeah. So basically, what happens is, yeah. So Natalie Portman's character, right? What was her name?
Evie?
Evie helps V to like sort of escape the policemen, but she gets hit by the head and then like goes unconscious on the floor. And then V decides to like doesn't know what to do, so he decides to take her with him because like that's the only way he could keep her free and safe. Because of the footages, they're gonna know like she was involved, or they're gonna think she was involved, and they're gonna like arrest her and whatnot. So basically, like they're having these conversations, and V tells Evie that she's gonna have to stay in this like sort of house that V has for a year until 5th of November next year because yeah, she's not gonna be safe either way outside. And then first Evie sort of, gets angry with him and she says like, why would you do something like that? You should have just left me there. But then she sort of, I don't know, I guess she likes V, or she's like curious about him, and then she goes and starts talking to him, tries to learn about him. We see like these hands, they look sort of like burnt or like I don't know what, but like the skin is bad. And we kind of maybe understand that something happened to V and maybe like this is why he's doing it, but he's just like very like good with his words, and then he's constantly like telling that the people should have power and the government is corrupted, and like he reveals that he steals supplies from the government to eat, and he's basically like an anarchist. And yeah, but yeah, what did you think about like V's character when we're introduced to him like that, like in a personal level?
Now, when we went to V's lair, house, dungeon, basement, whatever, three things I gotta say. Number one, incel, super incel. He lives in a basement. Like you cannot get more, you cannot get more on the nose than this. Like he's an incel who lives in a basement. Okay, but I'm joking. I'm joking. The second thing I want to say is that at that point, I realized what my issue is with this film, and I realized it very early on. And I kept on watching the film through this lens when I saw this. V is working alone. V is one man taking on the government. V is presumably, and I know everybody's going to say this, Simon Hill, here he goes again. V is presumably a white man, right? So this falls into like the great man idea of history. If you don't know what the great man idea of history is, it's the idea that history moves along because of great men. What would history be without Alexander the Great? What would history be without Julius Caesar? What would history be without Napoleon, right? V is acting like a great man of history who typically falls into the archetype of the white man who can overcome insurmountable odds. And that's the portrait or the character that they're putting into him and putting into V, right? Especially playing a British character. And the British have this idea that the British are insurmountable. They're the most clever people. They're the ones who are able to conquer the world and build the world's largest empire because they are a society of great men, particularly great white men, right? And this is a part of their own mythos. This is a part of the creation of white supremacy, right? So I was looking at that part of V as well. And then I was noticing in V's house, he has a bunch of things collected from around the world. Like he has, I don't know, art from Africa, paintings from Sri Lanka, Buddhist molds and statues and stuff like that. So it's sort of like V has collected all this culture from around the world into his house because the government has banned it, whatever, and purified society because they no longer want degeneracy. But it's no different than like what happens now in the British museums where they've captured a bunch of art and collectibles and artifacts from around the world from different parts of their colonial empire or imperial past, and just said this is our treasures now, right? Diamonds from Africa, gold from India, whatever, it's ours now. You get what I'm saying? So when I'm looking at V and V trying to topple this government, I realize this film is not actually revolutionary. It's populist in message to support the prevailing ideas about Britishness, British imperialism, and British white supremacy. This is everybody's going to attack me for this, but this is how I saw it. Like it's hard for me to look at V and not see that. You have one singular man working by himself, fighting this giant government, while representing everything that Britain stands for right now in the modern world, or everything Britain stood for in most of its glorious past. Fighting against something that's totally anti-British: fascism, Nazism, extreme isolationism. So V is actually fighting for the true Britishness that already exists now, which is already like imperialistic and evil. He's fighting against the Nazis if the Nazis took over Britain. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand what you're saying, but I don't I like yes, he is a white man, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, like he says that he thinks there's like a lot of things wrong with his country. So I do think like he's patriotic, but I don't think like he's like a British museum. Like his house is like a British museum because I don't think he believes in ownership really. Because like
He does have
this
that
is gonna
quote.
be like
He does have that quote when you talk about ownership. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Evie says you stole them, and then V says no, because to steal would imply ownership, and I didn't own these things. I lent them out. I'm borrowing them, or something like that, right? So go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so like I do think like yes, it's a bit of like Hollywood, right? They're gonna use a white guy to be this character, just like all like major superheroes, they're white, right? I don't know, Joker is white as well. A lot of like especially like earlier Hollywood movies, they feature like white heroes.
Mhm.
So that is Hollywood. But yeah, if you look at the idea of I don't think like he represents British supremacy.
This is how I'm framing it. This is how I'm framing it. Think about this, all right? And this might be hard to grasp, but I'll give two examples. I'll give two examples. Imagine there was a film that was made about a crazy communist or fascist government in America, right? And they had total control over society, just like in V for Vendetta. But there was one guy who dresses up like Uncle Sam. No, scratch that. Dresses up like Tony the Tiger. No, scratch that. Dresses up like Barney. Dresses up like the most American thing you could ever imagine, right? There's nothing more British than the Guy Fawkes mask. So this guy dresses up like, I don't know, Tupac. He dresses up as like an American icon and says, I want to take back our country. And he does a whole bunch of terrorist acts to try to get it. And all the while, he's quoting, I don't know, he's quoting our great writers like Dickens or not Wordsworth, but you get what I'm saying, like some of our great American writers, right? Which is what V does all the time. He quotes Shakespeare, he quotes all the intellectuals of British past and tries to evoke the spirit of the nation as the nation is now, which would resonate with the audience. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, also imagine like there was a movie about Turkey taken over by, I don't know, crazy fascists, and there was a guy dressed up like, I don't know, Mehmed II. He dresses up like an Ottoman Pasha or whatever and tries to rally all the people around the idea of what Turkishness really means as he does terrorist acts across the country. Do you see where I'm coming from with V?
Yes, I see where you're coming from, but I mean, there is a lack of like that, look and criticism from like outside.
Hmm.
Like he's not criticizing Britain as a whole, as a country in the world, and what they have done throughout the history. So that is lacking for V or for any of the examples that you gave. But that just wasn't really like the focus of his. I guess he was just like sort of focusing on his own country,
Hmm.
at least at first.
I got you. I got you. My guy Matt Villainy is in here. He's the guy that suggested we watch this film. What's up, man?
What's up? What's going on? Actually, what's going on? Simon, what's going on?
Yes. Shout out for making. Thanks for making us watch this movie again. And
Oh,
what's your opinion about this film? What's your opinion about V?
oh yeah. I mean, it's cool. V's cool. I was about to say, let's replace V with Killmonger, and
Mm.
boom, there we go.
Mm. Okay. All right. Okay. In Black Panther, Killmonger is trying to overturn Wakanda because he has hatred for Wakanda abandoning Black people worldwide, right?
Yep.
And he wants to replace it with a totally new system. But I would argue V doesn't want to replace anything. He wants the restoration of the old British ways, if that makes sense.
Right.
That's how I'm viewing V. V is like a conservative. V wants the old Britain back. Like that's why he's quoting Shakespeare. That's why he's always, he's preserving all these old films and these old relics of Britain's monarchy and their past and their empire. But Killmonger, on the other hand, I would say is coming to say, "Nah, we're burning down the tree. Like no more Black Panthers. Like I'm the king now." You get what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know.
Mm.
What do you think? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, it's different, but I don't, I don't know. I'm trying to see. I mean, yeah, you got you. I was just trying to come up with some solutions with your your answer and V. That's all, man.
All right, all right. Acting. You got anything?
I think the reason why he's like constantly quoting like old stuff
Uh
and
huh.
like sort of longing for that is because those things are now forbidden, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the message there, and not because like he wanted to be the Great British Empire.
Okay.
Because yeah, and let's not forget, like yes, like he is sort of like anarchist and he wants the government gone and things like that. But the reason that happened, like let's not forget that, like there was also some personal vendetta here as well.
Yeah, because All right. Well, let's jump ahead in the story. Should we continue with the story
Okay.
then?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, basically, V keeps Evie locked up in a cage in the basement, and then V takes Evie's card and goes and kills the main guy who is on TV every day sprouting propaganda for the government. And we get hints and pieces of information that say that okay, V knew all of these people that he's killing, right? Because they see him and they say, "It's you. I can't believe you're here." It's and stuff like that. And he's like, "Do you remember me?" And every time V kills somebody, he leaves a rose on their chest and stuff like that. And the detectives are following the murders and they're seeing that there's a pattern that all of these people once were in the military and they were all assigned to like some secret mission at a place called St. Mary's or something like that, some secret research facility. And yeah, then what happens next?
Yeah, basically like the government is also trying to cover up like what happened to the TV reporter
Hmm.
guy, and they say like he had like a heart attack or something like that. And yeah, the police is like trying to look up into like how they can find out who V is basically. So they're like going into this I guess like military archive, government archive thing, and they're asking like about this detention facility at a place called Lark Hill.
Lark Hill, yeah.
Yeah, and the guy there is basically saying like, I can't give you that information, or that information is classified, or everything that you want is in the files, but there's nothing in the files. Basically, all the records have been like destroyed, or I don't know, kept hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And he says something like, we did everything we could in order to like protect our country,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like a different time. It was a hard time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, like Evie is in the house, so she sort of like starts to open up to V as well, and he said she like starts telling us about her family
Mm-hmm.
and how they passed away, and like basically her dad and her mom were like activists, and they became activists or became political after her brother died in like the same thing. What was the name? Salt Lake.
Yeah, three rivers, three lakes, something like that.
Yeah, like there was some virus, and then like her brother died, and then her parents became political, and then they started like just going on marches and stuff like that, and one night like they got taken away, and possibly like the government killed them. And yeah, and then she expresses like she feels bad because she doesn't like do anything to make things better.
Mm-hmm.
She's not like her parents. And then she says like, let me get involved, if you need any help, like I can help you.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Now,
what did you think until this
yeah,
part?
at that point, right, in the story, I'm trying to really understand Evie's motivation for eventually joining V's side, which is what we see later in the film, right? Now, because of her parents and what happened to them, I can understand her wanting to get revenge against the government. But they also say early in the film that, her parents died and she was sent to like a re-education camp. And since then, Evie has sort of like grown up and sort of become integrated in society. Like she seems to have a decent job. She gets by okay. She's able to thrive and survive in this stable society, right? And it seems to be that V sort of like manipulates her pain points to like twist her into becoming this revolutionary, twist her into becoming this anarchist who wants to overthrow the government as he learns more about her story, right? And maybe he saw the weakness in her when he first interacted with her. What did you think?
I mean, I do think like all of us with the right mindset do have like those thoughts of the government is unjust, and we can do something about it, but most of us don't do anything because we're just like trying to live our lives and survive as well. But I do think like any regular like human being, when I don't know, like inspired enough, I guess, or pushed enough,
Mm-hmm.
can become sort of like can have those like revolutionary ideas. Because if you look at the world, like most revolutions were started by just regular people.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I don't know, the that revolution, for example, in Tunisia was started by a guy who used to sell fruits and things like that. So yeah, I think it's sort of like we sort of like saw that part of just a normal human being with a normal job. But yeah.
Right. There is like this sort of like Star Wars element to it, where like V is like Obi-Wan taking this young slave person into this big intergalactic fight that's bigger than him. There's a lot of Star Wars overlapping here. But the thing is, it seems like V, really got caught up in something. You know what I mean? It's more like I feel like she just got caught up more than actually was motivated, because she never, because later in the film she doesn't say this is for my father, motherfucker. Like there's never a moment where she's like, get him, V, kill them bastards that killed my brother. Like there's never that moment. In fact, I don't even think Evie even became aware that the government released the virus. Like she never once became aware that the government actually sort of killed more people than just the people they had in prison camps. You get what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it's like Evie is sort of just an unwitting fool in V's web of just revenge. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see that. Like that is definitely like a plot hole that like we don't know if she learned where the virus came from.
Mm-hmm.
That killed her brother. So like she was sort of like the most connected one to the story as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is a bit weird now that I think about it.
Right.
But I mean, she got like stuck in it, but she also knew like a lot of things were wrong with the government.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like she wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna fight the government, and that's not what her mindset was.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like that with most people. Like we don't wake up every day and be like V, right? We don't wake up
Mm-hmm.
every day and practice like swords fighting and plot against the government.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point something happens, and then we become targets,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when like sort of like we sort of like get thrown into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was just sort of like thrown into the mix. Thrown into the mix. I'm really conflicted about Evie's motivation, because even towards the end of the film, it doesn't really seem to be turned up. She just seems to be broken and reborn after what V does to her later. But yeah, essentially, V goes on like a killing spree with people, and Evie is actually kind of mad at him for doing the killing after he kills the main TV guy. And that was after they have like a really sentimental moment watching V's favorite movie on TV, right? And Evie says something very powerful to him that I think resonates through the film. She says, the guy loved the revolution or the fights more than he loved the girl, and I feel bad for her, or something like that. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that part had any significance?
I mean, I do think like Evie was sort of like this little voice for V,
Hmm.
To say like just because like they did horrible things to you, it doesn't mean you have to turn into a monster
Hmm.
and do the same things that to them.
Hmm.
And I think like she was maybe sort of like the voice of um, love, I
Hmm.
guess, or understanding,
Hmm.
or just like peace.
Hmm.
So maybe like that's why she said something like that, and then she also says like other similar things to that as well. Like throughout the movie, she tells him like, so you became the monster, or they made you the monster. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm gonna pass it to Mad Villainy. What do you think? Do you think Evie was actually like motivated to overthrow the government as like revenge for her family, or what do you think were her reasons to turn on V's side?
I think, let's see. I don't know. I think now was this before he captured her and made her think the government captured her?
Even after that, like just in the entire film, right? When we look at Evie's arc, like no matter what, any part in the story, do you think
In
like,
part.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, let's see. I just think I don't. I mean, it was clear to me that the the like the government or the leader of the government had become like just so uh, just full of itself and uh, I was trying to think of the word, but anyway, that she anyway she could help to just just uh, not overthrow, but just stop and bring more of a balance to the government. And I just think that's what she wanted to do.
mm, okay, okay. It's just it felt like V sort of like tortured her into actually being on his side. Like what he did with the guard, pretending to be the guard, torturing her for weeks, and learning about her family and bringing that up to her and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and basically
yeah,
just being like a nice guy. Like he was on dates with her, sort of like being sweet. You know what I mean? I don't know.
yeah. He like I think what he needed to be sure that she had remember he had to be sure that she didn't have any fear of anything.
Hmm.
Remember when he had her in the prison and for I don't know how long it was, weeks, and yeah, he did torture her, but he had to make sure that she wasn't scared of anything anymore, and that when she didn't have that fear, then she could do whatever.
Yeah. I think the real question is this: do you think V loved Evie, and do you think Evie loved V? Acting. What do you think?
Well, I think as we always said that he was like really not like a person, but he was more like an idea.
Hmm.
And I do think that Evie liked the idea of like him,
Hmm.
or like what he stood up for.
Hmm.
And I because when he died, I'm giving a spoiler here, but everybody watched the movie. So when he died, like she didn't try to know who he was. She didn't open his mask. She just sort of like accepted and took in his idea. But I do think like V actually maybe not actually loved her, because V was, like you said, sort of like an incel, right? He didn't have any girls in his life. So like the first girl that came along that believed in his ideas, he was sort of just like enchanted by her.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it was. And also I do feel like Evie had some like a little bit of like Stockholm syndrome.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Fell in love with her captor. Fell in love with her captor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but picking up in the story, basically, Evie gets a little bit mad that V is killing people, but V convinces her to help him do a mission to kill a priest. So in this, fascist government, religion is very powerful, but the priests are very corrupt. And one of these priests is approached by his assistant that says, "I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't get you as young a girl as you usually sleep with. Gross." But I got a beautiful one for you. And so the priest is like, cool. He walks into his bedroom, and there's Evie there dressed up like a little girl in like a pink schoolgirl outfit. And the priest is like shocked. His heart on is like ready, and he tries to like hop on Evie, but Evie is saying like, "You have to believe me. Somebody's going to come here to kill you. This man, this terrorist, is coming. I'm Evie, the girl who's been hanging out with V. You need to save me. I need some protection." So Evie actually tries to flip on V and get him locked up. But the priest doesn't believe it. He believes it's awesome, sick, nasty sex role play. So V bursts through the door and like tortures the priest, and Evie runs out the door, and then V kills the priest, and Evie is like running through the hood, and she eventually ends up at her boss's house, right, to find shelter. And yeah, when she's there at her boss's house, she finds out that the boss who she thought was trying to sleep with her is actually a dissident. He's actually a person just like V. He keeps a bunch of treasures that are forbidden by the government deep down in some basement, and he's also a gay man, a closeted gay man. And we find out really in this world that this fascist government, is against homosexuality, is against a lot of different things. But it's also ironic that that scene follows the scene before with the pedophile priest. And that's one of the good things about this movie, because like I always remember that time, like in 2005, when this film came out. We had, the Catholic Church, the scandals that were all over the news, where every single day you would hear about another priest, was raping and molesting like 20 different boys over a 10-year period and stuff like that. So I really like that the film was brave in going to that space, and also at the same time giving commentary on homophobia, because we were also in that time, in America at least, when George Bush was like, marriage is between a man and a woman. It's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and all that stuff. So this film is very brave, and this is the part where the film really starts to pick up steam, in my opinion. But what did you think about all that acting?
Yeah, definitely. I think like V sort of like goes to all the major like outlets of the government that helps, the governments to fool people.
Mm-hmm.
So like the first one is media, and then the second one that we see so far is religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And government uses these things to control people. So I also really like the fact that they were like different people in power, but they all used it like not for the people, but to fool people and for power and for money, and also like sick, twisted fantasies. And that was gross, like that. The fact that the priest was into girls like that and little girls also. And yeah, I also like the other guy. What was his name? Um, Dietrich. Yeah, him, and the fact that like he was gay, and he was like hiding a copy of Quran in his house, and like all the art is sort of like illegal. And yeah, it was cool. Like we never know like who is who in these type of like environments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely the film, does a good job on showing the different parts that support government, media, religion, but also the police state too, because we have to remember the entire time Evie and V are being tracked by this detective who's trying to find out, why these murders are happening this way, and how they can capture V. And yeah, Matt Villani, any comments about, that part of the film?
No, not really. And like I had seen the film before, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I really paid attention to it. But when I watched it again this time, like well, I guess it was a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it was interesting to see, Dietrich and all the um, ideas that I missed when I kind of like breezed over it the first time I saw it. So I watched it like with a bunch of people, and I probably fell asleep or something. I don't know, but yeah, this time it was watching the whole film through. It was good to see all the ideas that were around at the time. I mean, they're still around today,
Yeah.
but in a different way.
Yeah, Matt Villani, I want to ask you, because I think you're older than me, so maybe you remember this time even better. But like, 2005, that was like Iraq War was happening. Bush was in office, Patriot Act, all that stuff. Didn't this film feel like when it came out, like it was kind of like pushing the boundaries and like testing like society, because like that's sort of like what it felt like in that era. You know what I mean? I don't know if you remember it that way, but that's sort of like how I remember this film with everything that was going on in our society.
Yeah, I think so. It was. Uh, I'm trying to see. Yeah, it was just trying, push the envelope, I guess. But uh, I would have to go back and see when it was written. As far as I know, it came from it was a comic book written by Alan Moore,
Mm,
and so I'd have to see his motivations.
yeah, yeah. All right, all right. But yeah, so what happens next, acting in the story?
Yeah, basically, the police is like go. The police goes to this doctor lady that does the autopsy for all the murders,
Hmm.
right? And then he asks her about a rose. The rose that the murderer V puts on all of the people that are murdered, that he murders. And later, we sort of like find out that she was also involved with like this virus thing, and we kind of get the backstory here
Hmm.
because V goes into her house and kills her, and they actually sort of like accepts her fate because she has remorse about what she did,
Hmm.
and she says like, is it too late to say sorry? And then V says like it's never too late. She says sorry, and then she dies, and but she does have a diary
Hmm.
next to her, and yeah, like she also quotes like Oppenheimer, and she sort of like hints that she thought she was doing something great for humanity,
Hmm.
but what she invented or what she like did uh, got taken advantage of by the government and was used for like evil things.
Right.
And like, I think she saw it coming, but like she was just like wanting to do the science.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically we understand like this facility, they were testing like prisoners, I guess, and they were like human experiences, and a lot of people died as well. And the facility, also V was in this facility as well with a bunch of other people, and just like very inhumane conditions. And then we see that like the facility got burnt down, and V survived, and like he comes out like she describes him like comes out like a guy that lost all of his skin in the fire, sort of like a mutant. and then like he screams, and then I don't know, it gives like it's giving like how a superhero or like a villain is born
Hmm.
vibes. But yeah, like that's what happens, and then the police finds the diary. What did you think about like the backstory?
Yeah, the backstory was interesting for a number of reasons. The first thing that I thought was interesting was that she was explaining that they were doing experiments on people to try to create a disease or an antibody to a disease. It was either a vaccine or the disease itself. I forgot. But basically, a bunch of people died in the experiment, except the guy in door number 5. And Roman numeral 5 is V, right? And that's the room where V was in, right? So I thought that was interesting. And when I think about the number 5, if I really put my mind to it, I think 5 has symbolicness in this film because V kills 5 different people, I believe. He kills the cops at the beginning. He kills the media guy. He kills the priest. He kills the doctor, and then he also kills the government guy, sort of, kind of, halfway, right? So in a way, V sort of attacks like 5 different pillars of society. So I think if you really break down the number 5 in this film, there's probably a lot of symbolism everywhere. But when you talk about the how can I say this, the superhero type origins, that part did feel a little cheesy, a little Marvelish. V emerges from the fire and screams. Apparently, he doesn't have eyes, but he can still see, right? Which also makes the rest of the film weird. So it's like V actually blind, like throughout the movie. That's one thing. And I've never seen somebody go through like third-degree burns all over their body and then get superhuman strength. So yeah, parts of that story sort of take you out of the realism of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, it gave like superhero sort of cheesy vibes,
Mhm.
and it kind of created like plot holes.
Yeah. And also another thing is I wish the roses were explained because when she saw the roses, it was like I thought those went extinct. And there's a lot of times in this film where people are surprised by things. Like when Evie first eats breakfast with V, she's like, I haven't had butter in years. And then the doctor sees the rose and she's like, I thought they were gone. And I thought for some reason, V was going to be able to explain how he got those things or why those things were important to him, like the roses. But I don't feel like they
They
ever were.
they explained the roses.
Really, when?
It was the lesbian actress lady.
Okay, so explain it. Tell us.
She she was the she and her like wife were the ones who were growing those roses, and then V in his cell found her letter, her like little biography before she died, and that's why he used them. Like it was a symbol, sort of like an homage to her,
Okay.
the lesbian lady that she never met, because she sort of like gave him hope when he was in confinement in government prison or in that detention facility.
Mm. But it seemed like when the doctor saw that rose, she sort of knew that V was like coming. You get what I'm saying? Or that it was him. So how do those roses relate to him? Because I got the impression she associated those roses with V.
I mean, she was the one doing the biopsy, so she knew there were roses on the bodies, and the police asked her,
Hmm.
and she probably might have guessed that it was like that guy or that person because she saw him like come out of the fire
Hmm.
and screaming
Hmm.
like a newborn like villain.
Yeah,
So yeah, she definitely knew, and she sort of just like connected the dots,
I see. I see. Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, shall we continue?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So basically, after that, Evie is like still with the other guy, the boss guy, and he makes a new episode for his show, and he says like this is like a really good one. This is the best one that we made so far. And basically, in this episode, he's like a talk show like comedian ish, and we see the show, and in the show like they are making fun of the president, and they are making it seem like he's fighting himself, and like I don't know, he's stupid and he's like just thirsty for power, and then we see like images of people watching the show, and they're like all laughing, and they think like it's true and it's hilarious, and yeah, it is actually like very funny. And then the comedian guy is not really worried about it, and he says like what can they do, but we see the president actually has a very fragile ego, and he cannot like take the criticism, so he sends his military guy to get the comedian guy, and basically like they take him just like how they took her mother, and she goes through the same thing, and she when all that happens, she climbs like through the balcony and climbs down trying to escape, and then someone takes her away. Yeah, what did you think about like that show? And I don't know, like, because honestly for me it was like very bittersweet to see the scene.
Right. So for the comedy part, I thought it was funny, and I thought that Dietrich must have knew he was going to die because I don't know why he kept on thinking like, yeah, I could just make fun of the fascist government and get away with it. Like, what made him actually do that? Like, what made him think he had the balls? Like, your ratings are not that high, my guy. Just because the main TV guy died, that doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want. I don't know why he thought that
Yeah.
was funny. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, for me, like this automatically reminded me of like a bunch of comedians back in the day, and especially like during the like, there were a lot of coups in the Turkish history, a lot of military coups and a lot of like takeovers and things like that. And there were like harsh times, sort of like, Big Brother ish, before Vendetta ish. Everyone's, phones and letters were being tracked, and everyone was going to jail and those sort of things. And there were like a lot of comedians back in the day that used to make fun of the presidents.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think one of theirs like car got blown away, and one of them died like that. And people assume that it's like a conspiracy theory that the government did it, because like why would your car just explode? But yeah, and it's also like very sad to see like we lost that today, because the same way like people are scared to talk about our president or make fun of our president today, and you could be investigated if you do something like that, or if you tweet, and if you have like, let's say you have a lot of followers and you tweet something like making fun of the president, you might be in a lot of trouble. I don't know, like you might have your name like just blacklisted and things like that. So yeah, that was a bit sad for me.
That's interesting that you're coming at it from your perspective, because in your country, like, they don't have that freedom to do that. But in the US, like, the genius of our system is that people have the freedom to say whatever. And because so many people say everything, nobody listens to anything. So, like, people don't realize how dangerous Trump is, because all they see on TV are people making fun of Trump, calling Trump stupid, calling him crazy, and nobody actually takes it seriously that this guy could actually overthrow the government, enact martial law, get rid of the electoral system. People don't, that's how our system works. We allow so much freedom that nobody actually knows what to believe anymore. And that's what I was thinking while watching this too. Like, the government is going to overreact in this case. Instead of just letting people have the laugh, letting people have the reprieve, they instead, crack down, right? And this film has a lot of instances of 1984 within it. You know what I mean? Like the totalitarian government, the guy speaking from the TV. There's so much Orwellianness in this film, but people don't remember, or people that have never read the book, don't realize in 1984 the government won. And how did the government win? They won because every few days or moments they allowed somebody to go on TV and say the government is evil, it's trash, this guy is wrong, he's misleading you. And what the government encouraged people to do is yell at that guy and say, no, you're wrong, you're our enemy, you're all of this, you're all of that. And that's the thing, like, if you allow images and messages to be permitted, sometimes you allow people to have the ability to rally around something. People are more motivated to fight for something rather than just to be forced into something. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I was thinking this entire time for that scene. And also, I'm sorry I'm going off on a rant, but around 2005 when this film was coming out, once again, George Bush, Iraq War, bombs over Baghdad, government listening to your phone calls and everything like that. And we also had a bunch of comedians on TV at the time, like Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, who were roasting George Bush day in and day out. But like that didn't stop the madness. You get what I'm saying? And yeah, it just makes me think about our freedom to allow everything in America sort of allows nothing actually to get done. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but at the same time, I do think like, people who are involved with art, for example, or literature or comedy, like we have to have those like outages, even if our system is like really screwed up. Like if no one is like laughing about it, and I don't know if no one is commenting on it in that way, in that sense, I feel like then like for me, for my country, I feel like people have like just accepted it
Mm-hmm.
and lost the humor about it and lost the hope to fight, basically.
Right.
And I don't know like which one is worse.
Hello?
I don't know what the solution can be as well.
Yeah, we
Like
lost your
maybe
connection. What
like
did you say?
just, can you hear
Yeah,
me
yeah, go
now?
ahead.
Yeah, I said that like I don't know which one is better or worse, because in my case or in my country, I feel like people have lost hope
Mm-hmm.
and humor, and they just accepted certain things the way they are, and yeah. And then in your case, it's like too much misinformation and too much like talking and sort of like using people to go, just like putting people like against each other
Mm-hmm.
sort of mentality. And I don't know like which one is better, and I don't know what could be like the solution for
Well,
it.
the solution is obvious. V for Vendetta says it. You need a K for Kingdom, right? You need somebody to dress up in a Kamal Ataturk mask, blow up some buildings, rally people around the ideas of Turkishness and the real ideas of Turkishness, and pretend to be a little bit cool and hip because he collects like posters of like Snoop Dogg, and yeah, he's got like a toy elephant from India and something like that. And yeah, you rally people around that idea, just like V. You get what I'm saying?
No, I was talking about like the media, and I don't know like how that sort of freedom should
But
be.
V didn't care about reforming the media. He just killed the media figures. That's what V's idea of like fixing the system is. Kill the media figures, rally people around, and cloak yourself in the ideas of your nation, the history of your nation, the glorious past of your nation, and commit heinous acts of terrorism.
Wow, so you hate
I
me.
don't hate V. That's very reductive. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to say is like I think V represents a type of revolution that is a patriotic revolution, a nationalistic revolution, a sort
Mm.
of um, how can I say this, populist revolution from within. How different would this movie be if V was instead Muhammad? And Muhammad was like, yeah, let's overthrow this fascist government and replace it with Sharia. Like, would we still have this same reaction? The reason that we are rooting for V is because V is sort of like trying to restore the ways of the old British past. You know, a free society, a society where people can mock the president on TV and call the queen fat and ugly. You get what I'm saying? Not this Nazi-ish. Get rid of this German shit. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, I get it. But I mean, maybe that's also why this movie is like powerful in that way, because you know most people are patriotic and then they do want their countries to be like good, but just their
Hmm.
countries, and they want their countries to be great.
Right.
So it kind of also fills up that sort of sentiment in people's
But the
heads.
thing is, the society was already great. And I wanted to say this earlier, but I'll say it now. Like every time they show shots of people watching the TV, they don't look poor. People are at the pub is full. There are women working, like wearing nice clothes. You know, like there's cars in the street. They don't show a house of people. Like the family that they show watching TV looks like a middle class, normal, waspy family. Like they didn't show any strife in this society. In all accounts, like the fascist government created the perfect society for people that like this idea. No more feminism, no more faggotry, no more trans people, no more Muslims, no more, you know, weird colors walking around outside. I just see only white people now. Like it's actually a pretty good society by all accounts to people who like that sort of idea.
Yeah, I mean, if you like that sort of idea, yes, but then I also feel like I don't like I don't like that sort of just like one way, very robotic like society. But in that society, what they are showing is that like people there sort of like I don't know, like they exchange safety and not like having viruses and wars with having very strict, very controlled, without freedom lives.
Mm,
Just because like you're getting fed and you have work doesn't mean like you're living.
mm. I'm,
Like you get fed in prison as well, but it's also very shitty.
I'm gonna ask my guy Matt Villainy. Matt Villainy, wasn't the society that V was living in and Evie was living in, wasn't it pretty good? I mean, they got rid of the immigrants. There was no more feminism, no more Muslims. Wasn't it pretty great?
I mean, yeah, if that's what they're going for, I mean, it it was pretty good actually. Now that you mentioned it,
Is that no more gay people all over TV? I don't have to worry about two dudes kissing in my Disney films no more. It was pretty good.
but what I'm trying to see. So yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, because that's isn't that what like I guess the Trumpenites want or something like that.
Yeah. But I remember Matt Villainy, you left a comment before. You said, man, feminism ain't real. But in this film, in the society, there was no more like feminism. Like the society was ran by strong, powerful men. Like, ain't that a better society?
I mean, I would say so. Like, but that's just one point. And then they got other points that are like not good for. I mean, I guess it's good for depends on what society you want. And if the people wanted that society, then and I mean nobody else was. Well, no, I can say there were other people trying to change it other than V, but um, yeah, maybe they would have been better off somewhere else.
Yeah, somewhere else. If they don't like it in London, they can leave. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's go ahead and leave. Go on now. Pack up your bags. Get. Actor, save me. Save me.
I'm not saving you. You want to live in that society. Do you
I don't
go.
want to live in that society. I'm just testing the idea.
But guess what? You're not welcome,
I'm
Simon.
not.
No, you're not. So what are you gonna do now?
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So yeah, let's wrap up the film. Let's wrap it up. Like what happens at the end?
Uh, okay, so basically, V abducts
Hmm.
Evie, but we don't know that yet. And Evie, we see Evie in confinement, and she's getting like her hair shaven, and there's this like dark dude in the dark, and he's saying like, confess, just tell us where V is, and then we will set you free. And at first, like she's very scared, obviously, like she's not eating food, and she's just like lying there. And then after that, yeah, she finds like a letter. And it's from like a lady who was there before, and she's talking about like her life. She's saying like she was a lesbian, and the government fucked her life up basically. Like they got her wife, and homosexualism was banned and things like that. Anyway, she's tortured, and then she loses her fear of basically being dead or being killed. And then they tell her that like she's gonna get executed, and then she says like, okay, like let's go.
Hmm.
I'm done. And then as soon as like she accepts her fate, the guy says like, okay, like you're free now. And we then understand when she gets out, like she's in V's basement, and she gets, of course, like very mad at V, and she's like, why the fuck did you do this to me? And V is saying like, I had to do it because this was the only way like I knew how to do it, and the only way you would understand it. You had to lose all your fear, And yeah, basically like he sort of like mentors her into sanity a little bit after like he caused her to go crazy. Yeah, and then what happens? I don't know. Or
Well,
you want to talk
yeah.
about this part?
One thing that I have to say that separates this film from other action films of its time or after is it's so good at building like stories within stories. Especially the scene about the girl who passes the note, to Evie, and it tells her whole life story in that sequence of scenes. It's so beautifully done, so well done, so touching, so moving, and that's what makes this such a great film. Like, even though I have my criticisms of V and the messaging that people might take from this film, I really do like the small pockets of really in-depthness they go in, and how far the actors went to bring it to life. Because Natalie Portman getting her head shaved off was such a moving scene. Like, I remember it like yesterday, seeing that in theaters, and it hit the same when I saw it again last night. And also, the other girl got her head shaved too, and that's how I know. Okay, you even got the B-string actors to shave their head. People were dedicated to this film. Like, this girl got paid per diem and snack food in between shots to shave her head, and she went for it because that's how much they believed in the script. Like, that's dope. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. All acting was like really good, and like just the whole execution of the whole thing was really nice as well.
Yeah. What did you
I
think about
agree.
that
And
scene with the letter and that story?
yeah, I thought like definitely like V is an asshole. Like, why would you do that? But then at the same time, yeah, like we tend to not understand things if we don't live them
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. Like, yes, for example, right now I want to advocate for, let's say, Palestine and things like that. And but at the same time, I spend money like on unnecessary things when I could be sending that money to the people in Palestine or any like starving children around the world. And I won't know that until I experience something like that. I won't know hunger until I experience it. So I understand like why he did that, even though it was like such an asshole move.
Mm, mm. I'm gonna pass it to Matt Villainy. What did you think of that scene about the letter from the girl in the other cell, and also when V revealed he was a torturer?
Okay, so I mean, yeah, I think that was one of the better parts of the film. She, putting Evie through that, so she could understand, and because yeah, he was in the cell right next to the other prisoner, so she was actually living what he lived in that point in his life. So I thought that was really well done,
Mm,
and yeah,
yeah. And do you feel like V was an asshole for doing that to her, or do you feel like it was necessary?
actually, I think it was necessary.
Mm.
So I mean, if I put myself in these shoes, I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, I got you. I got you. I I just feel like, with Evie, yeah, it's necessary if you want Evie to be your crash out. Like, if you want Evie to be your soldier in your war, V, like, yeah, you gotta brainwash her, beat her over the head, and basically break a bitch. Like, V broke that bitch. Like, that's what he was doing.
Yeah,
V ended up breaking the bitch, and then she was like, I can't believe you. I hate you, but I love you at the same time. So, but still, I would have liked to see like Evie transform and really just channel all the problems that happened in her life because of the government instead of just being Stockholm syndrome into it. You feel me, Acti?
Yeah, I guess like yeah, but I felt like even after like everything that she went through, she sort of just wanted to go back to her normal life.
Mm-hmm.
Like she didn't become like a freedom fighter or a guerrilla of V, you
Mm-hmm.
know? After she found out like everything, I guess she spent like a couple of days there, and then she said like I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And then she sort of like started living her life. But what changed is like now she knew like, what the truth was, and now she knew that she was fearless. And if something were to happen after that point, she knew she could like stand her
Right,
ground.
right.
I don't think she was meant to be like a fighter like that.
I got you. But
That was like V's and also like other people's characters a little bit, like that little girl who did the graffiti and things
I
like
got
that.
you. But it just makes me feel like, Evie is, in any other circumstance, we would say if this happened to a woman on screen, we would say that's abuse, and that's not right, even if it is for a just cause. And it just makes me feel like martyrs, like in Martyrs, Anna was brought into a cell, tortured, beaten, skinned alive for the sake of people understanding if there's an afterlife, right? And even if you think, hey, that is a noble cause, we should know if there's a heaven or hell. Like, is it worth torturing a woman to the brink of death, which is what happened to Evie? So I was thinking Martyrs, like, about that scene. You get what I'm saying?
Mm. Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not completely the same because I don't think she was gonna die, but she's definitely like scarred for life because of
Mm-hmm.
that. But I don't know. I guess like desperate times call for desperate measures because he didn't have enough time to sit down with her and philosophize with her.
Man, do you think V?
Because also like the last time like he tried to confine her, she ran away.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you think V tried to break a few? You think V was trying to like build a harem, and this is like the first time it actually sort of worked? 'Cause
No, no, I think he wasn't even jerking off.
imagine the scars.
Yeah, yeah, like he just kind of like hated himself.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. I bet when he whips it out, it looks like a sausage without the skin on
Ew, ew.
it. My God.
and like the cat chewed on it.
Oh God, ugh, ugh. Put it away.
We're so bad.
Hey, but I, Matt Billy said thumbs down. Hey, but there was an interesting scene. You know, when Evie goes to the rooftop and like bathes in the water, and at the same time they show scenes of like V, emerging from the fire. I like the contrast there, and I think that goes to show like V is fueled by rage, but Evie is more fueled by this like washing away of who she was before and now transformed into something else. That's how I interpret that.
Yeah, I guess like the knowledge sort of made her change,
Hmm.
and just being able to accept the things, and then also having like the strength to fight for certain things, not like physically fight, even just like mentally, not accepting certain things or not like saying certain things are okay, is like also very powerful. So yeah, like these things sort of like came from like personal revenge, right? And I think like he developed these ideas as the time passed, like as he was plotting, and he realized like certain political
Hmm.
things, and like it started with his personal vendetta. But then like for Evie, it was like she always sort of knew like all the other people, right? Like the government was not someone to trust, but she gained that power of
Yeah,
herself, of her like
but
mind.
she went along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. What was I gonna say? Um, should we? Damn, there was an important
Yeah.
point. There was a point I wanted to make, but maybe I'll catch it later. But oh yeah,
Okay.
I remember now. I remember now. Sorry. It just
Um,
made me think that V sort of became no different than the government. The government basically locked people into a society, brutalized them, fed them the same ideas, threatened them with death, and if they didn't fall in line, pain would come, and that's sort of what he did. And so, yeah, he sort of became the monster he hated. That's all.
yeah, yeah, I was thinking about the same thing as
Mm.
well, but because he also, yeah, like he tried to put an ideology in her mind by creating the circumstances and then forcing those circumstances onto
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically, at the end, the police are still trying to find out like what happened, and then they arrange a meeting with like this guy that was in the facility before, and later we find out that was also V as well. Like he just put on makeup and prosthetics, and we find out like how come like that facility was like what happened and how the government came to power. And basically, what happened was that like the government, um, agreed with a pharmaceutical company. They created a virus, and then instead of like using the virus to defend the country or like wage war on other countries, they use it against their own people to come in power. So they started a virus in 3 places, and then they said like, oh, we have the cure, and you can vote for us if you want the cure and if you want the safety and
Hmm.
stability. And we learned that as well. And then at the end, V goes up to like the guy who has the military power, like the police
Hmm.
force, and he makes a deal with him. And he basically says like, if you kill the president, I want to take out the president. So if you kill him, you're the only one who can do it because I know you have like men that you can trust. I'm gonna like give myself in, and you can have me. But yeah, so basically his plan is like ticking, and at the same time, like the president is like pushing on the media. They're showing like he says something like, "Show them why they needed us in the first place." So as the November 5th come closer, people are starting to feel uncomfortable. Like some riots are happening, and in the media they are showing like viruses and how it was and all of those things. So a lot of propaganda. And then at the end, yeah, V wants to see Evie, and then he says like he basically built a train bomb that like under the ground, which is like closed now. And he says like this is my gift to you, my house, my everything I have. These are my gifts to you because I realize that I'm not going to be able to live in this new world that I'm helping create by destroying the government. You're going to be living in this world, so you should like take the action. And basically like forces her to be the terrorist. I don't know. And that was kind of weird. Like, yeah, but I guess like no one is dying in this explosion.
Hmm.
It's just like the explosion of the building. But yeah, and then he says like he's gonna meet his creator, so he's gonna like die. And then he goes off and he watches the president get killed by the military guy, and then he kills the military guy as well, and then he dies as well because they shoot at him like hundreds of
Hmm.
times. And yeah, and they also have like this little romantic moment with Evie as well before he goes to do all those things. And then Evie is left to like pull the lever for the train. And while she's about to do that, the police comes, and then he's sort of like half-heartedly holding up a gun and saying like, "Don't do it," but he actually wants it as well because he realized the government was fucked up as well. And yeah, at the end, basically the parliament explodes, and the police is like waiting for the orders to attack the civilians. All the civilians come with the masks and the hoods. And because the president is dead and the police guy is dead, nobody gives them orders, so they don't do anything to the civilians. And V is dead, and yeah, everyone is like, you know, accepting this new future now. I don't know,
Hmm.
and that's the movie.
Yeah.
What did you think about like the whole last 30 minutes of the movie.
I once again, those action sequences were just a bit like they took you out of it. You know, when V gets shot like Tony Montana a million times, but then he slices through everybody like Wolverine. You're like, what did I just watch? It's sort of so unbelievable. But it's very cool. It's very like fulfilling, I would say, because you want V to have his victory, right? Even if you disagree with what he's doing, like me. Well, not really disagreeing, but side eyeing it. You know what I mean? You still want to see him win. Very I just wish there was a bit more backstory on how V was able to do all of this stuff hidden from the government, like build a whole train station. Like there's so many parts of this film that make you say, how did that actually happen? You know, he rebuilt the train station, filled it up with explosives for 10 years, and nobody knew about it. Uh, but
I
yeah.
mean, he didn't rebuild the station, but they were like closed off.
Hmm.
And I guess like they poured cement or something like that and closed like the filled the hole of the entrance of the station.
Hmm.
And then like it took, and he said something like it took him 10 years to get back
Yeah.
in. So it's like a whole life
Yeah.
plan.
Which is crazy. It's also crazy how he found time to like I don't know teach himself to memorize every Shakespeare play and watch every movie from 1942. So you know he's got a lot of time on his hands, man.
Yeah.
But
And
go ahead.
yeah, I there was like the scene, if you remember, the little girl with the
Hmm.
glasses, and then she's doing graffiti, and a police officer like catches her, and he shoots her,
Hmm.
and that's like how sort of like the riot
Hmm.
starts. I also like that part as well, and just like the whole thing, how like the society was sort of bubbling up
Hmm.
and waiting for November 5th, and nobody was sort of like scared and afraid anymore. I felt like, and just like how Evelyn, Evie, and V were not afraid anymore. They weren't afraid as well. So I like that part, and those things always spark revolutions, like children getting like killed, and women, or just like people that are innocent getting killed. They are like sort of like the beginnings of
Right,
revolutions.
right. But what I didn't like is that that girl was at the end of the movie. She still lived.
Everybody was at the end of the movie, but I think that was just like a dream-ish scene.
No, that I
Like the comedian guy was there as well, but he died as well. Or like the lesbian girl was there
really.
because Natalie Portman was giving like a speech there.
So everybody was there. Okay.
Yeah, because the police guy asked, "Who is he?" And then Natalie Portman said like, "He's me, he's you, he's all of
Hmm.
us." Something like that.
Hmm.
So that's why they showed everyone's
Oh,
faces. And I guess it's like homage to also like all the, you know, nameless, faceless heroes that we have that started or fought for
I see.
revolutions.
I see. Okay, I didn't catch that. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm gonna go to Matt Villainy. What did you think of the ending of the film?
Yeah, it was a good ending. It was a good ending for that movie. Um, and I want to say, so Alan Moore, he wrote V for Vendetta as a comic book, as he was a comic book writer. It was in '82 to '85, right? So, and he's British, so you have to think what was going on around the world or in Britain around that time. I know, yeah, it's hard for me to remember because I was alive, but I was super
Hmm.
young.
Hmm.
The main thing I remember is like this was way after that in '89. You know, the main thing that the Berlin Wall fell,
Right.
or they knocked it down or whatever.
Right.
But that was after this. And also Alan Moore was famous for not wanting his works adapted into film or
Hmm.
whatever. I don't know about this film, but I know Watchmen. I remember reading he definitely didn't want that adapted. But to me, that was a good film. It was pretty much almost mirror to his comic book, The Watchmen. I think they changed one thing at the end, but other than that, it was like the exact same
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think even if it was written in '82, it could still have like relevance for today, right? Like George.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
like George Orwell's book '84. It was written about communist regimes monitoring their people, but now today we have all sorts of surveillance on our phones and TVs and stuff, so we can still be monitored. So I think
yep.
yeah, I think media could.
It was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
foreshadowing. Sorry.
foreshadowing. Yeah, it's like some media can predict the future, like Tupac lyrics, right? So yeah.
Yep.
Um, but all right, yeah, the ending is good. I would say overall the film ends well. Like overall, I enjoy this movie a lot. I like it a lot. Um, I just think people might look at this and say, "Oh yeah, V is just trying to free people," but what does he leave behind? There's no president now in this society. There's no leaders. Everybody important is dead. He's gone too. Like, what is left here? What is left to pick up the pieces? And
Yeah.
yeah, I think he also opens the door for an even worse dictator to come later, like an even worse society to come. And yeah, the film feels like a good rousing film with no sort of like direct resolution on how to build a better world after. It's just like we defeated the empire and that's it. You get what I'm saying? That's go ahead.
Yeah, but it's sort of like also what happens after situations like this as well, because this like that child being killed and stuff like that, it reminded me of like what happened in Turkey in 2014. And there was like these protests about like Gezi Parkı. It's like a place in Taksim, and they wanted to like do construction there, and then people were so against it, and then it sort of like snowballed into this like whole big thing of like people versus the government. And then like in the middle of everything, there was like this little boy, and he went out to buy bread, and then he got like hit in the head by something like what the police like shot, I think like a plastic bullet or something like that. And then he went into coma and he died. And then after that, like people went crazy. And yeah, like his face was everywhere, and all those things were everywhere. But I think what's good about this movie, or like about V's idea, is that he doesn't really have a face, or people doesn't really know him other than the mask. So he cannot be idolized or be fought for like that. But what he actually stands for is like his idea, and that's what he says as well. You know, he says to when he's killing the military guy, he says, "I'm not a person, I'm an idea," or something like that. And ideas never die. So I think like that's the special part of V, or like his whole deal. But if you think about it, like you said, all those things happened in Turkey as well. But then like in the end, nothing really happened. I don't know, like then sort of like, you know, the government takes a few steps back, but then like comes even more with full force. Right. Or like the government is overthrown, like, I don't know, in many countries like Sudan. And then like even a worse government comes, and you can like never trust them. And I don't know, like it is very like a paradox, and also seems like it's a non-ending cycle.
Yeah, the thing about the mask is, like, on one hand, it does allow V to live on, because like anybody who puts on the mask can sort of represent his ideas. But that's the problem. Like, V didn't actually leave any ideas other than nothing should exist, or what we have now shouldn't exist. And I think this film is an indictment on anarchy as an idea, because like V didn't say, okay, let's reorganize the society where everybody gets exactly what they need and what they want, or let's not have so many rich, wealthy people. Let's actually share the wealth. His idea is like, no, just fuck it, blow it all up. You get what I'm saying? And there's people who are actual anarchists, like those are their philosophical, political beliefs. And this film says, yeah, okay, let's test your ideas. We blow up the government, then what? And I don't know. So there's that thing. And then the second thing is, like, looking at this film, we always have to remember the audience. The audience will look at this film and imagine themselves in the role of the protagonist. So when they see a group of people all wearing the mask fighting the government, they can just imagine themselves in that place. But then are they actually living that sort of life? Like, are they actually willing to challenge power in their day-to-day lives? We look at V for Vendetta and imagine we would be fighting with V, but we're not speaking out against Gaza because we're too scared to lose our jobs. We're not speaking out against, any evil thing that's happening in this world because we're scared of the repercussions. So it's sort of like a hypocrisy type of thing, and it allows people just to have a psychic release of all the guilt that they have for not fighting against the system, if that makes sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it does. And it's definitely very depressing. Because yeah, even though it's true and we do live like that, we don't want to live like that, but you can't sort of deal with that every day, because if you deal with that every day, then you're going to be depressed. And some people do get depressed because of
Right.
this, you
So
know.
instead of being depressed, what we do is we watch a 2-hour movie where a guy tears down everything we hate about our society, and we feel better about ourselves for not actually doing anything to tear down our society.
Yeah, true. I mean, there are like sort of passive ways I feel like you can be an anarchist, not necessarily blowing up buildings or I don't know, stealing or killing, or yeah, being an incel. But yeah, like you can educate people and you can try to do better, but just living your normal life, even just that, like you sort of contribute to the system if you want it or not,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Matt.
I just want,
So
yeah,
yeah,
was it,
maybe I
yeah, I
just want
want,
to say this.
oh,
Maybe like the best thing is it should be like the, you know, things you give back to society should outweigh the things that you know don't.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead, Matt Bellamy.
oh yeah, I want to second that notion. Like the real anarchist is not like, so when you have someone just want to blow stuff up, that's just a terrorist. That's not like a real anarchist. An anarchist just believes there's no rulers, or there shouldn't be any rulers. So they go about their lives uh, that way without uh, without violence or whatever. They try to make their lives better and encourage other people to make their lives better, but they ain't trying to blow up nothing. They're voting with their wallets. They're moving to other places, stuff like that.
Okay. So,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I just want to say something. This reminds me of a tweet I saw today, and it was this girl who was holding up like a keychain, and then she wrote like on the post she wrote, "This is I stole this from the British Museum because they stole everything in there." And this whole thing reminded me of that. Like I think, yeah,
Wait.
I don't know. I thought it was just funny and sort of like related to this movie a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. But yeah, overall, my score for this film is a solid 8, like a solid 8. Like, it's a good film. I'm glad I watched it again after many years, because the how old was I? Like 15 or whatever when this film came out, and like watching it at 15, I felt like, wow, that's radical. That's like empowering. And now I'm looking at it with a more cynical, older eye. I'm very interested to see how I'll look at this film in another 10 years or 15 years. And yeah, my opinions about Evie in this thing. I feel like the flaw in this film is like Evie's non-development. It's growth, but it's not growth that feels right. It's sort of like how this film tricks us into thinking that what happened to Evie is actually okay when it's actually not, honestly. And I just wish that V actually had more to his character other than being almost a caricature of everything British put into one man. He was uber British man, and it was sort of bothersome. um, but other than that, the world building was good, acting was good, action was a bit cringe, but it was entertaining, and yeah, solid 8. That's what I think. Final thoughts, acting and score.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like 8 is a good score because yeah, there were like some plot holes, like you said, some scenes were like just not was that good,
Mhm.
or just like was not related. But overall, like it's a good movie to watch and discuss and think about your own country, your own government, and it is good to like see it with a critical eye and not be like, oh, V is like a hero and we should be like him.
Mhm.
Not in that way, but just in a way like
Right.
what sort of things like he says that you can sort of like take in and then I don't know
Right.
adjust it to yourself.
I think this film would have been more interesting if it was this. And the film actually says a lot about these groups of people, so it would have made sense for this to happen. So in the film, the guy always says, "We got rid of the Muslims, we got rid of the faggots, the gays, all that." If V instead was a gay Muslim, he was a gay Muslim, and he ended up getting all the bad stuff that happened to him. But he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna fix this country once and for all, and we're gonna get this straight. We're gonna we're gonna have gay marriage and Sharia all at once." You get what I'm saying? How differently would people look at this film if there was more explicit in its messaging instead of just V being some guy who wants freedom for what? You get what I'm saying? Like freedom without a cause, freedom without. He was a rebel without a cause, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he had personal vendetta as well.
Yeah, that's why
So
the film's
yeah,
called V for
like
Vendetta.
that was yeah, like that was powered by that. But yeah, I think it would definitely like be interesting to have something like that. And if they do make like a second version of this movie, like a sequel, because I think they can. Like this time it would be America, and then like it would be even more futuristic or
Yeah.
dystopian. I don't know,
If I,
but
if I
yeah, like they can do it like like
if I
that.
think about it, if you think about it really deeply, V at the end of the day is no different than Taxi Driver. Who was the guy in Taxi Driver? Ralph or whatever.
Robert De
No,
Niro.
the
Yeah.
actor. I mean the character. I forgot his name.
Uh, I
I,
forgot it.
he was a pissed off white man. He's a pissed off, angry white man, mad at the world, so he wants to see it burn. Like there's school shooter vibes from V, low key. The more I think about it, the more I get disturbed by V. Yeah, the society is bad, it's horrible and stuff like that. But the film can't send two messages to us, like saying, okay, we made our society clean. We got rid of the gays, the trans, the feminists, the leftists, the communists, the Muslims. We got rid of all those people, but that's bad. I don't know because the people nowadays say that's good. That's what they want. They want the immigrants gone. I don't know. I'm so confused.
No, but I think like the difficulty is with people like V or maybe like us as well, like people who want some sort of like change and revolution in the world and also like diversity, peace, all of those things. We want that. But like we don't really have a game plan for that. We just like, we want this and we don't want anyone fighting. We don't want an atomic bomb. We don't want like starving children and all of those things. We don't want racism. But like we don't have a game plan to do all of those things at the same time. But it's so much like easier and more structured to hate. So like, those people who are like extreme right, they are like, this is the society we want, so we want everyone out. We want to be super religious and all of those things. So they have a good game plan and that's why they can succeed all the
Mm,
time. And that's why like just like that, that's why like V is also a bit in the air
mm,
because we are also like that.
mm. Deep, deep acting. It's deep. It's deep. I don't know. This movie's confusing. I'm breaking my brain. I'm breaking my brain literally thinking about this. Because
Anyway, let's ask Matt
yeah, yeah.
Villainy his
What's
final score.
final score? I hit it with an 8.4.
Okay.
Any final thoughts on the film?
Yeah, it's a good film. How could it have been made better? Shoot, I'm not sure. I mean, it was a pretty solid film.
Mm,
I'm sure it could be made better, but for that time, it was pretty solid.
mm. Okay, okay. All right. Well, shall we wrap it up, acting?
Yeah.
All right. So this has been episode 52 of Simon and Acting Movie Reviews, V for Vendetta. Shout out to Matt Villain and shout out to Avery Adams. Shout out to anybody who's going to listen to this in the playback. And also, shout out to everybody who's been leaving great comments under Tell Them You Love Me, the documentary review we did about 2.5 weeks ago. It's now like one of our biggest movie reviews, the most commented on, most liked. Acting, what have you been thinking of the comments we've been getting under that documentary?
I definitely like agree with all of them because most of them do say like, this was just like unethical and unprofessional. Even if she loved, him, she shouldn't have done that. So I definitely agree with all the comments that say that.
Mhm.
And then I also was like so shocked that people thought about like the diaper and things because I didn't think of that. And like, yeah, that's true. She would have to take off his diaper and she would have to bring protection. So like I'm getting like new details and I really like all the
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah, I love.
I don't know what this movie is.
Oh, you got to see it.
Well, you should watch it
You got
though.
to see it.
Okay.
It's one of the best documentaries this year, possibly. It's one of those documentaries you will not forget. The link is on my Twitter, and then listen to the review we did after. It's really good.
All right.
You
Yeah.
know, but yeah, I really love all the comments too. It's great. I love the discussion. It's hilarious. It's a lot of black women. It's like Lipstick Alley came into the comment section, and I love it.
I mean, yeah, like, women care about like children and men and I don't know, family and things like that. So maybe that's
I'm
why.
telling you, that's why we should have done that documentary about that white woman that went to Uganda and killed those 40 kids. We would have had 50 million views by now.
We can do it if you want.
I'm telling you, true crime is our niche. People love that.
Okay. I mean, yeah, but we do like normally like we do 3 movies a week or something like that. I don't know if I can watch that many true crime videos and then talk about them
I'm
as
just saying.
well. I don't know, like my psychology would be going
But
downhill.
wouldn't I mean? What if they were all as good as Tell Them You Love Me?
I don't know. We can have like a, month,
A month,
a month of like true
a
crime.
month of true crime and docs. Okay, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to just be
Yeah.
true crime. It could be docs too.
Yeah,
You
true.
know. But all right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Shout out to everybody and peace.